All right, guys, welcome back to Mr. Post Frame. This is the Solo Barndo Build, and we're finally on to the interior framing. So in the next couple videos, we're going to cover how to frame the interior of a post frame barndominium. So let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, guys, so the first step is to put up our interior girts. We use 2x4 girts, 2 foot on center, which means we have to use 5/8 drywall. If you want to use 1/2-inch drywall on your exterior walls, you really need to drop down to 16-inch on center girts. The reason we use interior girts is because we end up with an 8.5-inch wall cavity. We use 3 inches of closed cell spray foam, which puts all of our electrical and plumbing between the insulation and the interior drywall. All right, guys, so I did one side. This is 64 foot long, 14 foot tall, and it took me an hour and a half, and that is with 3 or 4 phone calls that came in that I had to take and doing my video stuff. Another thing that I like to do is I like to mark out all my girt locations when I'm doing my column prep prior to the columns even go up. So if I know I'm finishing the interior of a barndominium, I'm gonna mark all my interior girt locations before I ever even put that column up. All right, we all have all of our sidewall girts ran on both sides. I mean, I had a ton of phone calls. I don't know what was going on. And then the client stopped by. We're gonna tackle the end wall. So what I like to do is I got this little green line laser. This one's a DeWalt. I've already had my bottom girt, my top girt placed. So I just line that laser up right there. And then I'll mark lines along here. And so I know that's where my girts have to die. So then I'll measure over 1.5 inches. I'll put a 2x4 in, screw it in with the same screws I use for the purlins. So I have a nailer to go into. I'm gonna be honest, man, I'm about tired of this camera. I keep having to take the battery out to get it to turn on. One of these 6-inch screws, it'll go through this 2x4, through that 2x4, and into the column. All right, now it's as easy as lining my girts. Coming this way, right in here. I can nail them right in here, toe nail them into this girt. It will be good and strong. All right, guys, I don't have the girts on that wall, but I want to get this done by Saturday because the plumber's coming. So I'm going to work on the walls that have plumbing in them. There's not a ton of walls in here. I guess quite a few, but this wall right here is what separates the house from the garage. So I'm going to build that first. I'm going to make that a 2x6 wall. And so what I've done is I've added these measurements up. Construction calculator always helps. And got my dimension to this wall on both sides. Then I used a laser to make sure I was straight across. So I've got it all marked off on the floor. I've got it marked up the sides. So now I'm gonna go ahead, lay out my bottom plates. I'll get my Stabila laser in here, and then I will shoot every single stud spot once I have it marked off, because there's going to be a second floor. So I want to make sure that every single stud is cut so that that top plate is perfectly level. That way my floor system will be perfectly level. So the first thing you need to do is find your highest point of your concrete. which I did. My stud length on an 8-foot ceiling is, because we're not doing anything on the floor for finish, is 92 1/8. So 92 1/8 is my starting measurement. So I find the highest part of the concrete, I add like an 1/8, and that's what I set my 0 at, and then I go ahead and hit all of my stud locations, which I'm doing, and writing what I'm adding to each of those. So typically your highest part of your concrete is either going to be along the edge of the walls or around pipes or something like that, because typically the concrete gets pushed up there and they never get it pulled back. So there's a door here. I usually wait to put my jacks and header in, just because it just adds a ton of weight to the wall. If you have a couple guys, I'd put it in on the ground, but I'm by myself, so I do it after. One thing I do, I run my bottom plate through the door opening, score it so there's only like a 1/2 inch or less that I got to cut out later. So now I can start nailing this together and standing it up in sections. All right guys, so a couple tips when you're doing your walls. Obviously you can't lift this whole wall at once. So I lift in sections, put a couple just angle braces to hold this into the wall up. That one's already attached to the wall. And then when I stand this next one, I just screw a board in. So when I lift it up, it hits this and it can't just keep going. And that's really important on taller walls, but got my 2 boards ready here so that I can put angles on it to support the wall at this end. All right, we have this wall done. This is a hall coming down, which I'm going to have a header here to carry the eye joist across here. So I'm gonna have double jacks on both sides, 3 inches of full bearing. Got all my tie-ins marked. So here's a wall right here that'll tie in. Alright guys, so you can see, if you mark out your bottom plate, lay your top plate next, you can cover both with your regular 7.5 inch speed square. If you're doing 2x6, you got to use the bigger speed square. It'll go across both of those. So now that I got all these marked off, get my laser, measure out all the studs, and get them cut, and these 2 walls will be ready to go up. You're probably asking yourself, boy, is this really necessary? That does not looks time consuming. It is, but what sucks worse is an unlevel second floor system. So with a concrete floor, it is not going to be perfectly level. There's going to be probably a 1/4 inch minimum variance through the whole thing. So by shooting these, cutting them all individually, you'll end up with a perfectly flat floor, which is amazing. All right guys, as you start adding walls, you can see I start adding cross braces. So I make sure this wall is plumb, and then we will make sure that the bottom plate has a screw in at the top plate and then some in here, and that'll hold that wall where it needs to be. Same with that other long wall over there. And then as we start adding walls this way, I'm gonna get this secured at the bottom. We're gonna plumb this up, and then we're gonna screw that brace in there, and we'll keep all that there until we get the floor system on and get this thing all locked in place. If you don't do that, you can end up in a nightmare. All right, we got the rest of the walls laid out. That's the utility room. Door will be right there. This is a big bathroom. Finally have all of the walls built. Still have to do some door headers, and I have to put all my top plates on, which is what's going to happen next. All right, guys, so that's gonna be a wrap. That's 3 days of interior framing. mostly me doing all that by myself. I did have Justin, my cameraman at the time, help me lift a couple walls while he was there filming. But 3 days, I had all of the main floor interior framing done. So make sure you come back. In the next video, we're gonna be setting I-joists, doing the subfloor, stairs, and the upstairs framing. As always, we appreciate you watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, share with your friends, and we will catch you on the next video.